welcome to On My Block Podcast and Green Bay Packer Podcast, along with my good friend and teammate Mike Wall. I'm your host, Amon Green. How you everybody doing? How you doing, Mike?
Brother, I'm doing well, man. Good to hear your voice.
I know. I clicked it on the right time to get this thing smoking and running down the line. We got a good show ahead of I say today for everyone to listen in. We got some good questions that my man Mike has come up with, good topics to talk about. But before we go on that, I'll get into this read. Our BetOnline is our sponsor. So our partners at BetOnline continue to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports information. Find all the latest sports developments, including updated odds on the NBA and NHL playoffs, which is about to start up. You got does NHL have play-in rounds, or is it just the NBA?
No. Only the NBA could even think of something. So we'll get into that later. It's the dumbest thing. God, it's so stupid.
Right. So with that, you got Major League Baseball has just started. You got Ohtani balling out, hitting home runs, striking people out. He is doing his thing. And I don't know, did you see I know you watch UFC. Did you see the taunting of the fight this weekend? I can't remember the names, but I remember the one guy who won, who previously lost to him. His son.
Stylebender, man. He's the guy. He's it. Like
his son at the last loss mocked him, so he mocked back to the son. Something I could see you doing.
Did you see when?
Yes.
So the history. Yes. Okay, so that was.
I saw it.
They were teenagers.
Classic.
It was a long time ago.
Right.
They probably weren't teenagers, but they're in like the old. The boxing ring. They weren't in a UFC octagon. That was phenomenal, though.
Yeah, the kid, when he did it, he looked like he was like 6. Now he's like 12 or 13 or 14, 15. He started crying.
I just don't know if I'd be mocking the kid. Everybody's different.
Everybody's
I just don't know if I'd be like, I'd be mocking. Like if I just knocked a grown ass man out, I don't know if I'm like going over to the kid. And
I'm not going. I already did the job. Right, whatever he did. Right.
Yeah,
so I'm not going to walk down that aisle either, but I just thought it was interesting. So fights and even next season's NFL future. So BetOnline is our continued source for all your sports wagering needs, include live betting and your favorite Vegas casinos and poker games. So call to action here. Let's go. It's super easy to get started. So head to the website today or use your mobile device. Join and use our promo code BLEAV to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your deposit. And so BetOnline, Mike, where the game starts. So
yes, sir.
We got a lot of good stuff, Packer stuff, around the league stuff. Get off my line. It's all super topics that we got to hit. So I'll hand it off back to you, buddy.
AG, there's just, we're in this like holding pattern right now. You're 3 weeks before the draft. There's the waves of free agency have kind of come and gone. We have some Odell Beckham Jr. news, which is a little bit interesting. We'll talk about it because I think it's a bigger Lamar Jackson question. But I just wanted to talk about, historically, one of the biggest developmental opportunities is between year 1 and year 2, right? When you're talking about pro guys, you be talking about college kids, really anything. But year 1 to year 2, it's like you get into you're institutionalized into what it means to be a professional player, a college player.
Yes.
And some kids can just go, right? Like maybe you were just like, who just go? But some kids, most athletes have to like, okay, I got this figured out. I got my feet wet. Yeah. Now I'm going to put it in. And I'm going to go into overdrive that next year. And so I just wanted to think about guys this year, and we're just talking about draft picks because we have enough of draft picks just to talk about those guys. Right. Who do you think is going to make the biggest jump on the Packers from year 1 to year 2? I don't want to put Keyshawn Nixon in there, but we could. But let's just talk about the draft pick. So I'll read these guys off to you.
Okay.
All right. So we can remind the listeners, we got first round, we got Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt. Second round, we got Christian Watson. Third round, we got Sean Ryan, the offensive lineman at UCLA. Fourth round, Romeo Doubs. Fourth round, also Zach Tom. Then we got fifth round, Kingsley Enagbare. And then 3 picks in the 7th. Tariq Carpenter, safety. Jonathan Ford, interior defensive lineman. And Rashid Walker, offensive tackle. 4. And Samori Toure, wide receiver, who actually saw some action last year. So
go Big Red.
Of those guys, tell me what you think.
Right now, the first one that pops off the page, he was the first one to do a lot of stuff, even in preseason, was Romeo Doubs. I liked him from the start, watching this film. I could just see he was that guy that when he comes into the building, he is focusing. His focus is, I say, undisturbed. He's there working, running his routes, learning the nuances of being a wide receiver and knowing how to beat guys in front of him. I mean, I watched him in training camp practice beat what's his name? Stokes, Eric Hill, and Jair Alexander in in a pass drill, in like a red zone pass competition drill, not competition, but a drill. And to have that happen in practice with veteran DBs is huge for a wide receiver, because as we know, we played with a lot of wide receivers, really good ones too. It's all about their confidence. If they had confidence, they were going to win. And confidence stems from obviously physically being in the shape you need to be in. And then number two, your mental, what you put in the playbook, what you learn from your coaches, what you learned on your own from your college coaches, things like that, and what you learned on your own in general. And he shows that in his demeanor. He's not overly confident where he's showboating and all that. He just catches the ball, does his job. And then another guy that kind of blossomed a lot later in his first year was Christian Watson. Mm-hmm. And he had that big drop against Minnesota that kind of put that lull on that cloud over his head, along with the rest of the team. And then
what would have happened if he would have caught that ball?
It would have been
for the entire season. I mean, the whole team.
Yes, it would have been a different season. He catch that ball.
Isn't that crazy? You 100%. Think about it, and like, we're not over-exaggerating for fans out there. No. Like, we're not over-exaggerating this at all. If he catches that first pass of the year, we could be talking about a whole different NFL season for the Green Bay Packers. That's how big some of those plays are.
Huge. I mean, affected that first 2 months of the season. And so it wasn't until December, late November, where he caught that one touchdown, and then boom, he's on the map. And so it took him a whole season. And so that's where the first two that pop off right at the top of my head of guys that's going to have a big jump from year one to year two.
Here's my only pushback on that is this, and I think this is a net good thing, but you no longer have Aaron Rodgers, right? And so if you're, but I think the good news is, and I just was talking about this on another show, is I would just continue to stockpile young guys. Like if I'm going to have a young quarterback, if I've already said Jordan Love's my guy and he's going to be my guy for 15 years. Because that's kind of the timeline we're thinking when we think Green Bay Packers quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. If he's gonna be my guy for 15 years, then I want to grow my wide receiver, my tight end core, young draft pick and tight end maybe. Mm-hmm. I want to grow, like my running backs are maybe even, they're kind of like the old men in the room now.
Yeah, they are.
You think especially Aaron, right? Aaron Jones.
Right.
So
Aaron Jones.
I want to grow this group with Jordan. I want Jordan to be surrounded by. Like, I want this group to go to Vegas together. I want this group's families to vacation together. I want them to work out in the offseason together. Like, I want that kind of relationship with my guys. I'm not talking about the stadium. I'm talking about in California, wherever they all live. Like, that's what we want. And you don't get that if, Aaron Rodgers is 38 years old and Samori Toure is 22. Yeah. It's like, it just doesn't work. Like, that those numbers don't make sense, right? So that would be, in the short term, I think those guys are going to take a step forward, no question. The only thing is they might not have the same quality quarterback thrown at them. Here's a couple ideas, AG. So the first thing is I don't think Sean Ryan is going to overtake John Runyon Jr. So right? I don't think Rasheed Walker is going to see time. Zach Tom, if we don't pick up a tackle, Zach Tom could be our right tackle of the future.
True.
Right. Yeah, he's got to put on some weight, but he could
and a little tall. I mean, he's not going to grow, but in terms of height, but weight wise, yeah.
Yeah, he's bigger in the chest, and I think we're saying the same thing. He's a little bit. I think for this style, it depends. They can always adjust to the athletes they have on the field. They can obviously move that tackle around more if they have a guy like that who can move as well as he can. Mm-hmm. So that can mask some of the other stuff. But he could, if he goes to be a full-time starter, and that's the biggest jump you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
Here's two guys that I think we need to see. I think Quay Walker is going to make a jump, so I'll just take him off the table. He played all year. He
got a lot of time. Yeah,
he's
good and bad.
Devontae Wyatt has to learn how to play with pad level, because we just got rid of Mean Dean Lowry. So Devontae Wyatt has to be a starting contributor to this team, full-time guy. We're going to see him for 35 snaps a game. He has to. He's just got too much ability in the pass rush. Like, you put him against a young guard, it should be lights out.
Yeah.
The other guy
from SEC in the competition down there. Yep.
No doubt. Dude, Georgia's just like, I mean, you see the Jalen Carter kid, man. You're like, this stuff is like, you got to be. Jalen Carter, by the way, he reminds me of Rod. You remember Rod Coleman? Played for the Raiders and the Falcons?
Yes.
Dude, his moves are like Rod Coleman. They are unblockable. He's just violent the way he moves around. But the other guy I want to talk about, Tariq Carpenter. Tariq Carpenter, okay, we don't have any safeties, right? I mean, right now there's no starting safeties. Tariq Carter is 6'3", like 225, bro. Like now, I know Joe Barry's defense and blah 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 blah. You need alley tacklers. Insert Tariq 6'3", 225, 228 pounds. If he's got anything as far as breakdown ability, he's good ankles. He can like decelerate into contact. When we talk about breaking down for tackle, like he fits the profile. Maybe not what Joe Barry wants, unfortunately, but it's what I want. It's what you want. I think it's what fans want to see. So I would love to see that guy get a shot, just knowing that Adrian Amos is gone right now.
Yes.
Darnell Savage is playing slot safety. Like we don't nickel safety. We don't really know who our two guys are going to be. I want to see that dude get a chance.
Yeah. I mean, the size alone.
Ford too, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the size alone is freaky. To be 6'3", 230 at strong safety, I would just want to see, because you're talking about Sean Taylor, size-wise.
Yes. Yeah.
I would want to see range and physicality, what Sean Taylor brought to the game.
You better be physical at that big.
Right. If you 230, you 6'3", you better be the hardest hitting dude on that field. Period. I don't care what by position. You need to be knocking dudes out on the daily, once a game. That's what should be your mentality. Like, I'm here to knock people out and get interceptions and make tackles. That's what
So I had my buddy Brian Russell. Brian Russell is one of the best dudes I ever met, and he played for the Minnesota Vikings, played for the Cleveland Browns.
Okay,
and then he played. I met him. Like, I hit him when he played for the Vikings. I met him when he played for Seattle. So me and him were in Seattle together.
Yeah.
And he goes, so we're both retired, we're the same age, and he's up there for a game. He's going to University of Washington Business School. He's up there for a game, and he goes to the University of Washington game, and he meets and he walks in, and he's like, he comes to my house the next day, and he goes, bro, he goes, I'm glad I'm not playing anymore. I go, why? He goes, I went in and I was meeting all these Seahawks, like Lofa was there and all these guys. So he introduces him to Cam Chancellor, and he's like, and he doesn't know who Cam Chancellor is. And he's like, hey, what's up, man? I'm Brian Russell. I used to play safety for the Seahawks. And Cam's like 6'5", 240. It's like
he's 6'5". I thought he was.
Bro, he's like tickling his elbow with his finger. He's like, what's up, man? I'm Cam. I play safety for the Seahawks now. And Brian's like, yes, you do. Like, same position, totally different player. Like, time to move along. And that's Tariq Carpenter. If you look at our old guys and look at him, you're like, that could be it. That could be a sea change. That would be a fantastic thing. For the Packers, I think we need we need an alley tackler.
Yes.
We need an alley tackler. We need an edge rusher. We need an alley tackler. Everything else is like spoken for.
Right.
Edge rusher, alley tackler. That's at least on defense. That's what we really need. So I think you're right. I'd love to see those receivers. I think Romeo Dobbs is a good one, but I'd love to see Christian Watson just continue next year what he finished on last year. I just think that's going to be. Unless they get a tight end to stretch the field with a new quarterback, I think it's just going to be a tall ask. I think it's going to be really hard.
Say it again.
I just think it's going to be really hard unless they get a tight end that can stretch the field a little bit.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I think it's going to be really hard for those guys to have like monster numbers in year two. Like we'd love to see, and it's not. I don't think it's because of their development. I think it's just because the opportunity. I mean, listen, man. We've already talked about this, you got a young quarterback coming in. Like, who are you going to lean on? Aaron Jones and AJ?
Yeah, you have to, because that's where they, like you mentioned, they're the elder statesmen, which they're not that old, but they are, because they put the work in and they've had the best stats out of any core so far, and consistency. I'll say consistency is the biggest thing.
They're the MVPs on the offense. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
It is. That's facts. That's just straight up facts right now.
Speaking of young quarterbacks. Bryce Young, there's this huge draft debate, and I think this is like one of the few ones that I'm actually interested in.
Right.
Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson. Like, how do you think about drafting? Right? Anthony Richardson, the Florida kid, is like unbelievable.
Eye candy wise.
Oh my God! But you could fall in and his presence in interviews, the way he talks about the game.
He's carrying himself very well.
I love everything about that kid. I mean, you look at some advanced stats, you watch some tape on him, the drop passes. I don't see any reason not to draft him one, to be honest with you. Because, again, I just look at it like, dude, you really think you're like one quarterback away from going to the Super Bowl? Or are you trying to get like the best guy for the next 10 years? But Bryce Young is the consensus most ready guy. AG, he is. Let's forget about how tall he is. He weighs like 175 pounds wet, dude. Like he's
They're
like
giving him 20 pounds on the
he's like Snoop. He's like Snoop Dogg, man. You know what I mean? So it's like, does it matter? Like, do you think it matters?
No, 100%. I mean, I've been playing football obviously since I was 6 years old. Size does not matter. Doesn't matter.
Okay, AG, tell me one quarterback who's that small.
Russell Wilson, Michael Vick. Vick shorter.
Russell
than
Wilson's over 200 pounds. Mike Vick was 6'2", 205.
No, he was not 6'2". No, I stood next to him in a Pro Bowl huddle. I was taller than him.
Mike Vick. So Mike Vick's 6 foot tall, but like
he was looking up to me.
Listen,
he was looking up
to
me, bro.
South, bro.
You weren't standing with me.
I know. I remember him and Steve Smith got into it. And I was like, oh, Steve's almost as tall as he is. Like I thought it was funny, but Mike. Okay, this kid he's put on some weight. Yeah. But he's small. Russell Wilson is not small. Russell Wilson is short.
Yeah, he's solid. He got a little bit thicker. Yes.
Right. Kyler. I was like maybe Kyler Murray, but Kyler Murray physically looks, and he's been hurt, but he physically looks bigger than this kid.
Correct. So he's not taller than him.
But I don't think the height's important. Like I don't think he's going to have a problem getting rid of the ball.
Well, that's what they bring up all the time. Go ahead. The height. They always bring up the height because that was a thing when Russell came out. Could he see over the offensive line? And I'm like, wait a minute, you got Drew Brees who's barely 6 feet. Oh, maybe that. Yeah, maybe that. And then Michael Vick, like I mentioned. And so that's just something for people like McShay, Mel Kiper to bring up to make points when they're talking on their show. That's it. Because
you don't think the size, like I'm with you on the height, but I do
weight
think
wise.
I think having a small frame, being like a maybe bone density isn't as grand as yours or mine.
Right.
I would be personally nervous, and like if I'm putting my GM hat on, it does bother me that this kid looks physically so small because like Lamar Jackson is an absolute specimen. He's been hurt in the pocket twice in the last 2 years.
Right. And so so thinking like that, putting my GM hat on, I always think like this. And I watched him, seen a ton of highlights on him. He's been in big games, a lot of great competition to know he's smart enough to get out of harm's way. And so that
in college.
Right, in college. So I would assume, and also with my coaching staff, be like, hey, let's teach this kid, make sure he continues that. He's an escape artist. He knows how to get out of harm's way. He knows how to get the ball out sooner than later. If he's going to throw it out of bounds, if he's not throwing it to a receiver, at least throw it out of bounds, but throw it out of bounds soon enough where you're not getting that excess contact that you don't need. Because sometimes guys wait and throw it out of bounds, and they're throwing it just as they're getting hit. That's what I mean by avoiding hits, knowing when to slide, get out of bounds, stuff like that. Conscious being as a quarterback, being conscious of that. And you've seen quarterbacks through the years. Some are really good at it. Some, lack that. I remember RG when Robert Griffin III was playing. He was somebody that he tried to tough it out. And we saw how long he lasted. He would have been a great quarterback still playing today if he knew how to slide and get out of bounds and not take those hits, even after the injuries, where he should have stuck to, I need to heal up and not try to prove anything to anybody else. Just you got the talent, but just don't let it get run out because of injuries.
Okay, so you got your first pick in the draft, Carolina Panthers. Offensive line's on improved. Campy's over there coaching them up. They drafted Ike Ekwonu first round last year. They have a receiving core. They have running backs. They have a great defense. What do you need? I need a quarterback. Okay.
Yes.
I got Bryce Young last year, almost 65% completion percentage, threw for 3,300 yards. I got CJ Stroud, 6'2", 220, 215, 66 completion percentage, 3,700 yards. I got Anthony Richardson, built like
a tank.
Okay, so they already had Cam
Built
Newton.
Like the strong safety we're talking about.
Well, they already had Cam Newton, so they're kind of going like,
right.
Oh, he might be a more athletically gifted version of Cam Newton, who we don't necessarily have to run the same kind of offense,
right?
But from traits and love of the game, I'm talking about physical traits. He might be the best athlete in the draft. Who do you pick?
I say Carolina, first pick overall. obviously this will be during the interview process of knowing basically who answered the questions that I, as a GM for the Carolina, answered the question.
That you loved everything they said.
Exactly. And so whoever says what I love when they say it, then that's my guy.
Mm-hmm. It's just going to come down to that.
We're not in those shoes for the Carolina Panthers GM. But if I'm a GM, I want to see confidence, and I want to see expert mentality of being a quarterback and knowing that now what you did at college is about to get super complicated in how you prepare for a defense and what defensive coordinators are thinking when they're trying to attack you, as you are trying to think while you're trying to attack them. They're going to switch it up. They're going to have DBs cheat coverage to make it look like another coverage, and school him on that, and make sure my coaches, that's my job to hire the coaches to inform him of that. Because then as long as he can progressively learn and get better, then that's what I want. I want somebody that's going to come in there and be coachable and listen and then get better. Make a mistake, no big deal. Let's see what you did on the mistake. Let's correct it, then move on. That person answered all those questions between CJ, between Richardson and Bryce Young. And Bryce Young being under Nick Saban has the potential better because he had the pro coaching already.
He already had Bill O'Brien. I mean,
and Bill O'Brien, right?
What you're talking about right now, like I'll just tell you, right, like Bryce Young is going to win that discussion every time.
Correct.
Just based on if you're basing it on the process he's already been able to go through at Alabama and what he knows right now, he's got to be higher than those other two. I mean, and everything points to that, right? The way he carries himself, the way he talks about it, the way that people are, or I should say, the way that people are talking about his interview process.
Correct.
But I just,
and you can say the same for CJ Stroud, Charlie Day at Ohio State, same program. They learned. I mean, some of their coaches were back and forth between Alabama and Ohio State, so kind of same.
I'm just talking about feedback
from.
I'm just talking about feedback from people that have already interviewed him, right? That's what keeps coming back. I have a really hard time. Like I have a supreme confidence in my ability to develop talent. So I have a really hard time letting Anthony Richardson walk. Because I already go with the running game, with the offensive line that we have, with the tight ends that we like. I can already envision how we're going to run this, and he is just. I just don't think the defenses in the National Football League had figured out a guy like Anthony Richardson yet. Like we're going to talk about Lamar Jackson in a while, but the reason that they fired Greg Roman is because like Greg Roman drank too much of the Kool-Aid, right? Like he went too far and stopped developing the passing game. But that thought process of like what's 11? It's true 11 on 11. Like I just don't think defenses can account for that yet. I think since Kaepernick came in the league, the game changed. And sure, they've made some adjustments, but a true guy who can throw it and run it at that level, and that when we say throw it, dude, that guy can throw it 80 yards, no problem.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
And he can run a 4.4. I mean, he's unguardable in a defense. So I don't think they're going to lose either way. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I do think, honestly, if you put Anthony Richardson in the wrong coaching staff, he could flounder for years.
100%, I don't think, which happens a lot,
right? And just like I don't want to compare the personalities of Bryce Young and the kid from Kyler Murray, but from a talent standpoint, escapability, arm strength, they have a lot of physical characteristics that are similar, and you can see. With Cliff Kingsbury, they've had just volatile success. I think a lot of that's on Kyler Murray. But my point is, I think with Bryce Young, you're at least going to see, regardless of where he goes, you're going to see like, oh man, this kid can figure it out. And they're probably going to push the blame, if they're not doing well, on the coach and not the quarterback. You see what I mean?
Yeah. In a situation like that, I do agree with that. And that'll be tough on that rookie. And then it'll be tough on that team that's unneeded, unwanted pressure that is going to be added if that's a scenario that pops up.
Hey, so this leads us into the next question, man. Why do you think quarterback is considered the toughest position in sports? Because they don't get it. Like you and I have to fight somebody. I got to fight somebody every play. Like what the hell? I get that it's hard to process, but like, dude, that ain't the hardest thing to do.
No, I say the thing. What people don't understand is the fans, it's the media that hypes up and makes the quarterback the sexy position. From the time I was little, I remember watching football movies where The quarterback was the golden man. He could do no harm. He had the beautiful wife or beautiful girlfriend. He gets everything. Then when I watched, and even by 8 years old, I already knew that the job of a quarterback was basically get the ball out, hand the ball off to the wide receiver or to the running back, and don't throw a whole lot of interceptions.
Hand the ball. What's your job? Oh, to hand the ball off to you.
Yeah, and then 2, you don't get hit that much. You only get hit when you don't make your decisions decisively throwing the ball and getting the ball out of the backfield when you're in control of it. So the only tough part is the mental side of it, really.
And that's huge.
It's huge.
I mean, it is huge. Some people say it's like 90% of the game, right? My point is like, well, first of all, I don't know if we're not talking about all sports or team sports. Like people want to preface this. Because I'll just tell you, like, I would when you think about, hey, what's the most difficult thing to do? I'd be like, go to that octagon and fight for a couple of rounds. That's like the hardest thing to do. Like,
go to practice rugby with the All Blacks.
Yeah, I don't think I love rugby. You and I both played rugby, high level rugby.
Love it too.
But it's not as physically demanding as football, man. Because it's just there's not. You can't play it 100% all the time. It's a hard sport. You got to run a lot.
Your endurance got to be ridiculous.
But fighting, like, I'm going to lock you in a cage and like want to use like 2-man in or 1-man leave Thunderdome style. Like that's real. But the quarterback thing has always been super interesting to me because I always go like, well, I feel like whatever you want to say, like LeBron James's job or Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, whatever their job is, whether it's point forward or point guard, like I think that's pretty. Like there's so many things that are just really hard, fluid sports. Soccer, like. I don't know. It's interesting. I always figure like if you don't have to take a guy on 1v1, you cannot by definition it cannot be the toughest position in sports. I don't know. That's just me.
Correct. It's always going to be the conversation because as long as the quarterback is still going to be the lead of the team, the most money maker, that question is going to always go out there. As players, we know mentally, yes, it's the most taxing, but physically and mentally total, it's got to be in your neighborhood. It's got to be O-lineman. Because linemen, what y'all had to know on top of what y'all had to do, like I said, it opened my mind and my game up when we started meeting when y'all in 03 season or 02 season. But also, when I figured out that y'all had to know just as much as Brett had to know, the only thing y'all wasn't doing was throwing the ball and running the ball. That was it. But I'm like, I remember between you, Flanny, Marco, all y'all would call out the calls and why Brett messed it up or why so-and-so, whoever the backup was that maybe got in during preseason. Then I knew, I was like, I had a lot of respect. I already had respect for O-linemen anyway. My dad was one. I understood the trenches. But then when I got here and was sitting there in that meeting room with you 5 or 6 or 7 of y'all talking and giving out the verbiage that runs that offense, I was like, oh, no. I know who I'm going to talk to when I need an adjustment problem. Ask.
The problem is it's so hard to throw a damn football well. Like we can't even find 32 of them. You can find 32 players that can block. The next guy we're going to talk about, Jalen Carter, but you can't even find 32 dudes that can throw a football well.
Right.
And let me ask you this. So Jalen Carter, off-field incidents, this guy could have been the consensus number 1 pick.
At the time, yeah.
This guy, I watched this guy. I told you, I feels like watching Rod Coleman. He's like 6'3", he's like standard 6'3", 305, 315, somewhere between here and there. He showed up at pro day a little bit, out of shape, but he had all that offseason, all the off the field stuff going.
Yeah.
When you watch the guy play, he is an absolute, no doubt, difference maker. Does he?
Yes.
Now, are there plays where he's not making a difference? Like, is he playing as hard as he possibly could all the time? And I'm not questioning his work ethic. I just think like that's NFL next level stuff that you just don't learn until you get there.
Mm-hmm.
He's not there yet. Like Quinnen Williams does that now. He probably didn't do it when he was, back then.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as disruptive, bro, this kid is next level. I don't know that he drops to. I don't think he drops to 15. I think his agent is saying like we're not going to do any interviews unless it's top 10 or do any pro business unless it's top 10.
Right.
But if this kid dropped to 15, do you even care? I mean, if you're a Green Bay Packers, if you're Goody, do you even care about his off-field? I mean, you care about it, but do you care about it enough to be like, nah, we're going to pump the brakes on this guy? Is it too much of a red flag? Is the pro day too much of a red flag? Or you just pop the tape on and go, I love him. I gotta give it a shot.
It's going to be one or the other. You either all in for this kid, but if you have questions, don't go for him. As a GM, as a team, don't waste the player's time. Don't waste your time.
I agree.
You either love him or you don't, because players with off the field stuff, it clouds a GM's judgment. When they know football, the ones that do know football, when they hear stuff or see stuff, this happened, this, right before they graduated or right after the bowl game, whatever, when it happened, the timing of it, whenever it happened, but it's still a topic, then that right there is your way of saying, I'm not going to pick them. Because if you already have that in your head as a GM and you're choosing that player, then you're not going to go full in, because when that player does get to the team and maybe something may pop up from his past, you're going to always resort back to that and not give your full support of that player. You feel what I'm saying? Because I've been a victim of that. I remember going to Houston and some of my stuff, I remember sitting down with McNair, the owner, before he passed away, years before he passed away. And the first question he asked me about my incident that happened with my first wife, ex-wife, when I got arrested in Seattle. So in my head, it's like, that's almost
10 years ago.
10 years ago, man. I said, my life, so
he's thinking PR. He's thinking, he's not worried. Yeah. He doesn't care about the person.
Exactly. Between don't care about the person and then looking forward. Because if you look in the past, you're going to always be stuck in the past. That's an owner, coach. That's like a cliche that I've heard from just living life. So if you're in the business world, you're looking in the past, unless it's something very useful information. But if it's not useful, like that information is, then that coach should be like, you know what? We're not going to do a draft for Jalen. I'm not going to waste this time, because this is so much in the frontal lobe of my head right now. But if you're looking at like what he does on the field, he is a problem. He's up on his toes. He's running around like a defensive back, but he's able to have the size of a defensive tackle. That's going to cause problems for defensive or offensive players. Then you'd be like, that's my guy. Those are the GMs that want him. That should.
If you had any inclination, because you go, okay, what did he? What the offseason thing is tragic,
right?
But he was. I think they were racing cars or something, though, right?
Probably. That's what it sounded like to me. Which is not smart.
Like, I'm going to tell you, right?
Students, right?
You know that Flanny and I race cars all the time. We're used to, right? I mean, like.
Correct.
Young kids do stupid shit.
Yes,
it just happens
all the time.
And this is super unfortunate. I'm not minimizing it. But if I was a general manager and I watched the tape and I really like what I saw, and I watched all this film and work ethic, I would be digging deep into. I'd be talking to the strength coach. I'd be talking to the nutritionist. I'd just go, listen, I get that he did this, but I'm just going to set that aside, because it's one of those things it is a problem and it's tragic. But he didn't hit his girlfriend, right?
Right.
He's like, there's other things that look at
way worse.
Yeah, when I look at other things, there could be some other things that might be more of a red flag. And I always think of it this way, like, what do I really care about? Well, is this indicative of him loving football or not? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I want to know, work ethic wise, is there anything that I'm going to pull from this incident with all this other information that makes me go, you know what? I'm just going to wipe my hands of it. Or is it turned out that, like, hey man, he's a team captain. He's a leader in his room. He's like, he's a great room guy.
Find that stuff out first.
He's everything you want. Oh, and he had this, like, he made a mistake.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Then
it's like, to me, it's a no-brainer, because he's got ridiculous talent.
Yeah, the talent is there. And like you said, you alleviate asking those questions. If it's those other questions, to make sure we're dealing with we know what type of person and then what type of athlete in the locker room we're dealing with.
Let me ask you this.
Yep.
When you were in this business for a while with the D1, the strength conditioning facility. Right now, what do you think about when you think about off-season programs and you think about, let's just talk about not the Packers, but just talk about football players.
Yeah.
What in March, let's say the preseason is going to start in July. You're talking about March, April, May, June. You have so much quality time. What was your favorite way? Like, I'm a big conjugate guy, which means that I'm going to switch up I'm going to have like kind of a core way I do business, but I'm going to switch up my lifts all the time. So I was like hybrid West Side barbell, but I'm gonna have a speed day, I'm gonna have a power day, but it's a lot more dynamic movement, obviously, a lot more cleans, med ball tosses. But I'm gonna switch conjugate, meaning like I'm not gonna bench press every week. I don't care about that necessarily. I'm just trying to be like an overall athlete.
Yes.
What was the kind of way that you like to train?
Kind of like similar to what you just mentioned about yourself. I switched things up. I remember one year off season, I worked on my endurance a little bit more, did a lot of speed endurance training. If it was on our spin, like actually on a bike, a spin bike in class, or just the way I ran on the track, just working on running 300s and doing the best 400 I could run down to the 200s, a little bit more faster. In the weight room, I had come from a great background in weight training at the University of Nebraska. So I took some of those little traits that Boyd Epley had basically thrown at us and put us through a gauntlet. So I would take the circuit training that we did. I would take the powerlifting that we did with hang clean and squat and deadlift and intertwine from either moving them with free bar or moving them with dumbbells or even kettlebells just to get different modalities down. Because I knew as an overall athlete, you got to be able to do this. I should be able to do this with my body and size and weight, in terms of flexibility, in terms of speed, in terms of strength. I know I'll be asked by my teammates or by my coaches, hey, obviously we want you to run the ball, but we're going to need you to pick up the blitz, and linebackers might be 250. We may need you to run a route like a wide receiver and break down and come out of that break and run a comeback, coming back to the quarterback. So I was thinking that about how dynamic I need to be, doing different things, working on like a basketball player, getting that endurance there, and obviously agility along with that. But then switching it up, always working on my quick foot drills and in my explosion, and just that I say that then that all around athletic ability where putting myself in different areas, doing functional training as well from different sports all through the off season, but continually doing it 5 days a week.
Yeah, the biggest thing now is like when I talk with athletes now, can you move right? This is, and it sounds stupid, but we don't really spend that much time. Do you?
That's huge. People don't understand that. That's
can
huge.
You bear crawl? Can you play low to the ground?
Yes.
Can you get on all fours and crawl around on the ground and be comfortable being uncomfortable, being that low? Can you? One thing that we used to love to do on Wednesdays was we'd set up like a hurdle gauntlet where you had to jump and dive and roll and jump up again, and basically trying to generate power from these uncomfortable positions. And what you start finding out about other people is they don't have the mobility, they don't have the explosive strength through their full range of motion, and it helps you over certain situations in the game. Actually, it helps you overall, but there'll be specific areas in every game where you're like, dude, I just did something that somebody else that is just as talented as me cannot accomplish because of my mobility, because of my ability to generate force from this angle, this joint angle, and all the other stuff, all the hang cleans and the squats and the deadlifts, the strongman training. It was all super important. It made me, it kind of made my persona. But what I remember now and what I try to enforce on these guys is like, make sure you are the absolute best mover you can possibly be. And I think when you watch like TJ Watt and JJ, you watch those guys now, they are a prime example of guys who are like, what is your number one? Like you ask TJ Watt or JJ Watt right now, like, what is your prime most important thing you're doing? They'll be like, oh, I want to make sure I can, like, my ankle mobility is as good as it can be. And you're like, what? And you go, oh, and you start thinking like, oh yeah, that's exactly what the hell we were thinking. We just nobody was asking us our opinion.
From the bottom up, my ankles, my knees, flexibility in those areas, in my hips, doing the dynamic warm up, something that Steve, so is it Van Stegen from Arizona? If I said his
Mark
name
Verstegen.
right, Mark Verstegen, learning that from him in 2001, that's something I still do every day, because you do the sumo, you do the sumo squats, you do the crossover lunge where your knees and ankles are different angles. And that's the modality stuff that we're talking about. And it's kind of, guys don't really get into it because it's mostly rehab stuff. And you don't think about it where that rehab stuff is actually
should be prehab stuff, right?
Prehab. You should be doing that every single day. That's what I learned. So I learned from when I got injured. By the time I got to Green Bay, when I tweaked the ankle, when I tweaked my knee, then I started doing that stuff. I asked Flea. I was like, you know how they were really conversation. I don't know Flea, if anybody, you could talk with him. You could throw stuff at him. He'll throw stuff at you. Hey, da da da. And I said, what about if I did this stuff every day? you know, just on top of before I go lift or before football practice. He'd be like, that's ideal. We just can't get everybody to go, you know, do that. I'm like, okay, bam. And then I started doing it every day because it just made sense and kept my muscles and tendons very flexible. You know, then injuries weren't a problem. And that's why I was able to be on the field a lot, basically.
You just said something that's like really important too, especially with technology now and the tracking that we do and the monitoring and sports science. First, when sports science first came in, it was always like, no, we got to pull it. We got to pump the brakes. Like we're working them too hard and stuff. And maybe some of that's true. I still think there's something to be said about pushing yourself past where you think you can go and what that does for you mentally. So even if the popular opinion is that you're overtraining on a certain day, or you're working too hard, or you're going to exhaustion and you shouldn't. And I'm not saying you should do that all the time.
Correct.
But what I am saying is we have gotten to this point now that we're so sterile almost with the way that we think about training. It's like we got to do this amount until your Oura ring says we've done this much. Sometimes you just got to blow it out, man. You just got to go and say, hey, I'm gonna work harder than the next guy right now. I'm gonna take 1,000 jump shots. I'm gonna do 1,000 pass sets. I'm gonna lift the keg over my head until the next guy quits, because I want everyone to know that I'm willing to do that and you're not, because that gives me something mentally that you don't have.
Yes.
And I think, like for me, when I watch guys now, and I think there's a lot of great programs out there especially on the private side. You know, you talk about House of Athlete, Brandon Marshall's place. I think he's got a couple of facilities now. I love what they're doing. I want to see guys competing all the time. The more that you compete with individually, you go to find guys on different teams. Talking about KJ Osborne last year.
Yeah.
When you have that opportunity to go and just compete, hey, I'm going to go find my limits this offseason. Yeah. Because I know that's going to pay off. If I can either go through your program and just, hey, we're making these solid gains, or I can go find my limits. And I can guarantee you, regardless if physically it does nothing more for you, mentally, man, you have an advantage that nobody else can give you. Nobody else can take away.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just having, I say the worst feeling is when you come out of a program and you feel worse, or you don't feel nothing at all. You don't want that as a current athlete.
You feel you just wasted 8 weeks.
Yeah. It's like, why the hell did I come to Arizona or Florida or Texas, wherever this place is? Yeah. I don't feel no better. That's the problem. That's where you got to realize that as an athlete. You hope that doesn't happen. But if you come out like you just mentioned, then you're at the place and you want to continue to go there. But then also you want to continue to change things as you're running along there too. You know, make sure things stay current.
And this is like the thing about athlete ownership. What we always talk about is, if you are in a situation, let's say you're at your team facility and they've got, they're catering the workout to the lower enthusiastic athlete, right? They're just doing 3 sets of 4 or whatever, and you're going, man, this isn't enough. Well, then you got to go and say, hey, to the strength coach, like, hey, I'm going to do some more. And if if you're not okay with that, I'll go somewhere else. I'd rather do it here because I'm already here. But I got to do this. Isn't enough. And if they're going like, oh no, it's enough, you're wrong, bro. That might be good for you, but if it's not good for me mentally, and I'm not showing any signs of overtraining, I'm sleeping 9 hours a night, I'm eating, however many 1,000 calories a day of healthy food. I show no signs of overtraining. My HRV score is not low, bro. I'm a peacock, man. Let me fly. You know what I mean?
Let me go. Yeah, I hear you. I understand that last part. Yes, indeed. Let me fly.
I got a fan question for you, AG.
Cool.
Top 3 draftable players or positions for the Packers. Ooh. And then conversely, what could the Packers do with those top picks where you just go, what in the hell is going on?
So just any picks, huh?
Well, so obviously the guy wants specific picks, and I'm like, well, I mean, listen, if they draft a kicker in the first round, I can tell you, but I'm thinking to myself, obviously, if they drafted another quarterback first round at this stage, I'd go, okay, what are we doing? And you could, I mean, if one of these guys dropped, you could see him doing it, or something like it. And it's what positions other than if you don't pick an edge, a safety, a right tackle,
right? Yeah.
People are saying wide receiver. Like if if you draft a wide receiver, I'm gonna love you, Goody, because that is right in the face of Aaron. Like that is an Aaron Rodgers like double middle.
Yeah,
finger.
you've been saying that for a couple of weeks.
But realistically, if they don't draft an edge defender, a right tackle, or a safety, I'm gonna go like, or maybe the start, maybe Carter's there.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go, what the hell are we doing? Or the tight end position, even at 15, is 15 pick of the first draft. Is that tight end worthy?
Yeah.
Is it?
I would say if it's a badass tight end,
you got to be pretty. Okay, so you got to be pretty freaking good. Remember, the last tight end we drafted is Bubba. And Bubba was a great player, right?
He was a badass. Yeah, he could block very well.
But okay, he was unique, right?
Yeah, he was unique.
There's not that many first round tight ends in the last 10 years that you're just like, oh yeah, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, those guys aren't first round picks.
They weren't first round draft picks. Let's just be real, they weren't. So I say later in the draft, but first I say for what they needed that 15 pick, I'm 100% on board. It's always, that's something I learned right away as a player to inventory up your inventory at the edge position, at the O-line position is always priority in the NFL. If you don't have the best blockers and the best say defenders that's coming off the ground, they got their hands in the ground. Man. If you don't have those best in those areas on both sides of the ball, then and you have a 15 pick where there's a lot of edge rushers, guys coming, from the college level that are been doing big things. You got I'm looking at one.
Shit, right now. If Miles Murphy's there, he's a no-brainer.
Yeah, you got Carter. If he's there, another guy, Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech.
Tyree Wilson's a 6'5" stand-up defensive, stand-up outside linebacker, rush edge guy.
Yeah,
and he is. I don't know if I'd take him over Miles Murphy or maybe even not over the Van Ness kid at Iowa, but he's certainly he's one of those guys where you look at and you just think like, oh, he reminds me of any of those Chandler Jones type guys from the Patriots back in the day. We're like, God, these guys are huge, man. Right. Willie McGinnis, all those 6'5" monsters.
Yeah. So you want to gloss up that offensive front with that 15th pick. Like going wide receiver is, like you said, just be a shot, but it wouldn't be something that they would necessarily need right now. That's more of a want than a need. The needs are in that front interior because why? You got Jordan Love. That's going to be your guy. You want to give him all the protection and the chances to win with him. He already has the run game behind him. We've talked about it. And he has two young wide receivers. He could progress up together with them. And then maybe a tight end free agency or later round draft pick tight end, then that you can mature. But then you still have guys that are on the roster that are there. I believe Tyler Davis is still here as a veteran. So you got that to help once you get, bring up that young tight end that gets drafted second, third, fourth round, something like that. But that first round, that first couple picks got to be somebody that has their hand in the ground, basically.
Do you think Harry Roseman's blueprint, and I know they lost in the Super Bowl to Patrick Mahomes and he's generational talent, but the blueprint of we are going to, without a doubt and by a long shot, have the best combination of offensive and defensive line in the National Football League? They've got – they're going to be different this year, and I know the San Francisco 49ers can make the argument this year that they're going to be the best defensive line right now. But you think offensive, defensive line, they are literally for days better than everybody else, especially defensive line last year. What did they have, a 9-man rotation? They had 8 dudes that had 10 sacks or more or something. It's some ridiculous number. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just – they're just –
Fletcher, Hargrove's gone now, right? Hargrove is gone.
Hargraves is gone. They're gonna lose a handful of guys, but even they had Robert Quinn. They had Robert Quinn for a minute.
Yeah,
I have all that, and they're like, I think we'll go get Robert Quinn too. What? You know what I mean?
I can believe they got that.
Talk about an embarrassment of riches. But to your point, Jordan Love, if he's your future, bro,
you got to protect him, man.
Go get that kid from Tennessee, right tackle at number 15, if or trade up. Like I think he's that good. Where you just go, I'm just going to go pick him up. He's got a mentality that nobody else on this line has, quite frankly.
That's what you want.
Yeah,
you want
you don't have a guy like that right now. You've got 2 really good players, but you don't have anybody who's just like, man, that dude's a badass. Like he's going to get in some fights.
And that's what you need.
Yeah, you need one of those. I would love to see that. So I would say those 3 positions, probably those 2, AG, like you're saying, offensive, defensive line. Mm-hmm. If they don't do that, then let's just go. We'll root for the Lions or something. I don't know. What?
Yeah, because right now they're coming off the top rope.
Oh my God! All right, let's get some get off my lawn here, bud.
Oh my God! Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please do this.
I turned on the TV this morning, and look, I hate to do this. I hate to be this guy where we try not to do this on the show, where somebody says something stupid in the media, and then we have to talk about it. But this guy, I forgot who it was, said, "Oh, I talked to NFL executives, and they're saying Lamar Jackson is not a top 10 quarterback in their opinion."
Idiot.
This has to be the biggest subterfuge, collusion, BS. Like, are you 100%. Kidding me? How could you not be top 10?
No.
I mean, he's a top. Is he a top? If he's healthy, is he a top 3?
Yes.
Probably. After last year, is he a top, I don't know, 6 or 7 at worst?
At worst. Yes.
At worst. I mean, Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Burrow. Now Allen, Herbert. I mean, Jackson's won an MVP. He win. All he does is win.
Yes.
And here's what's okay. So I started thinking about this, right? Because I'm like, okay, they fire Greg Roman, and they're like, the offense, and they brought in Paul Johnson, my old head football coach, to teach him some option stuff, right? To like
from Navy,
to make this a Lamar Jackson offense. Nobody said he couldn't throw the football. In fact, after his first year, and they're like, "Oh, I got to throw the ball better." He turned around and threw the ball. I mean, his improvement from year 1 to year 2 was ridiculous. And he came out and said, like, I made it the point to throw the ball better. Here's where it is. They're the ones who got rid of a sophisticated offense. They don't have good wide receivers. I mean, it's insane to me. So I went and looked at Greg. Here, this is interesting. I'm not knocking Greg Roman at all because I think he was asked to do a job and he did the job as best he could.
Mm-hmm.
So Greg Roman started in Carolina as a defensive quality control guy. Then he was assistant strength conditioning, offensive quality control. He made it up to offensive line coach, assistant offensive line coach, tight ends, quarterbacks, assistant offensive line coach. Then he was an assistant offensive line coach for the Ravens. And then in 2011, so I think he went to college. Then he came back. He was offensive coordinator for the Niners and the Bills, assistant or tight ends, and then he's been coordinator. I bring this up because I'm looking at this. I'm looking at his past, and he's coached tight ends, he's coached quarterbacks, he's coached offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that he's coached suggests that he was the right guy for the job, considering what they were trying to accomplish.
Right.
And they're probably right for going to find somebody else. But one, it was interesting that he went from assistant offensive line to offensive coordinator. I'm looking at it again. There was a gap because he went to college. I should have figured that out. But the other part about this whole thing is like Lamar Jackson's 25 years old.
Yeah, going.
And they just 26, and they just signed OBJ for $15 a year, which means to me like the Ravens know he's coming back.
They know something.
I mean, like they got to know something. I hope, and OBJ is the first. He's the number 1 wide receiver on that team now. They don't have a number 1, right? No. So they have him and Mark Andrews, running backs. You know,
and Mark Andrews is going to be a target though.
They have a legitimate offense now with OBJ. If OBJ is at all healthy, if he's 90% of what he was, they have a legitimate offense now.
Yes,
but you have to put this guy like the only thing that's scarier to me. The only thing that's scarier than Lamar Jackson running the Ravens' old offense is Lamar Jackson running a regular offense where he has scramble ability. That's actually way scarier to me. You know what I mean? Because
a problem. And that's why I play with Ravens on Madden. I give people that issue. Yeah. I decide to run the ball. It's a problem. You know. I mean, it is. It's definitely. I 100% agree with you with collusion. With you have a top 10 quarterback that's just sitting unrestricted. He does have an offer from the Ravens, but nobody's not even knocking on the door. You know, they're not even they're doing nothing. I just want to bring up some more comparisons. All right, you got a guy that was drafted same year as him, Kirk Cousins. From 61 starts, Lamar 45-16, Kirk Cousins 27, 32, and 2. All right.
Kirk Cousins isn't even in the same stratosphere as Lamar Jackson.
I know, but just look. I'm just looking. I'm not comparing them in terms of who's better. I'm comparing them on numbers and who's getting paid
salary.
What salary. Because Kirk Cousins has right now to this day $231 million guaranteed that he's earned.
But you would say that Kirk Cousins has manipulated and I'm not in a negative way.
Not a negative way.
But he has manipulated the cap system. He manipulated the cap system better than anybody in the history of the National Football League.
Him and his agent, yes.
Right. I mean, they absolutely did. And he got a guaranteed 90 over 3. I mean, he's done everything. I met with a guy last year. I was on a show from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot who the show I was on, but the guy, I was talking to a media guy, and he goes, Kirk Cousins, this is a Minnesota guy. He goes, Kirk Cousins is a guy that is always going to have good enough numbers to get paid and never good enough to win.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Which doesn't, to me, does not make it makes zero sense.
Thank you. Because Lamar Jackson could throw for 100 yards and run for 100, and they still win 75% of the time.
Yes. You know I want that guy.
Yes.
I want the guy who has the more wins column full.
The wins seem to matter, don't they? Like the wins matter a little bit more.
It drives me nuts. I'm like, they're winning games.
Yeah.
Your franchise, the Ravens, have been on top of the conference or the division, if not winning the division, and they've been in the playoff push every year since he's been on the roster. Other than when he's hurt, which quarterbacks get hurt. Aaron Rodgers been hurt, broke collarbone, foot, whatever you want to say, and he's a drop back. He's a drop back passer. He scrambles around. He gets out of the pocket when he needs to. Lamar could do that and more. You know, he has more rushing. He has just as much rushing yard as Aaron Jones, who's the starting running back in the NFL for the Packers. So that right there just shows the ignorance of what other organizations are doing just because they don't want the status quo to change.
Well, I agree that there's some ignorance to it, but I think the hard part is, honestly, Greg Roman invented this offense. He was told to do a job.
Yeah. Yep.
He did a job based on this guy's unique skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like he got fired. I think Lamar Jackson is, quite frankly, I think he's suffering because he was told to do a job in an offense that displayed how unique he is.
Yeah.
But also other teams can't just go, oh, well, we're going to institute an offense. And I think his point is like, you don't have to institute anything. I can run it. Did you not see me at Louisville? Did you see me at Louisville? I know how to play pro style. I can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
They made a decision to do this. And now I feel like he's suffering a little bit because I think an owner is going, well, I got to revamp my whole offense now. I got to go get this guy. I got to get a blocking tight. You know, I got to get 2-3 running backs. Blah blah blah. I don't need to wide receivers anymore. You just go, no. That's not it. That's not the problem.
Right.
But it's so easy to pitch. It's so easy to look at Kirk Cousins and go, I know I can put Kirk Cousins in this offense. He can run it. And Lamar Jackson, undeservedly so, but because of the unique style of their offense, I would imagine that there are probably ignorant people out there going, well, I don't know if he can run the kind of offense that my fans want to see or whatever it is.
And then that's why you're a losing organization.
No, that's why people get fired.
Right,
that's why they get fired.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm
100%. 100%. You're absolutely right.
If you think that way as an owner GM, then that's why your team is not winning.
That's why these dudes keep getting fired. But
exactly.
Nothing ever. The only thing that's constant is that the way that these guys usually you say the only thing that's constant is change. The only thing that's constant in the National Football League is how hard it is to change your mindset.
100%.
AG, let's skip this one.
Okay.
Are you actually all right? So I'm listening to this game. My daughter plays in the state.
I'm about to say you want to hit this one. You're a parent in this area right now.
State semifinals.
Okay.
And you're listening to the game on a TV, and there's it's very, very poorly shot and everything. But you hear parents talking trash to the other team in soccer, and I'm like, no. High school. I was trying to figure out at what is an age appropriate age when fans, because at this point the fans are parents, to talk trash to the opposing team. I was like, it's not 5.
No.
I feel like when I was in high school, I know when I was playing ball in high school, I would get, because I would start talking back to parents.
Right.
So I know they were talking trash, but I just can't remember when that crossover was. Because now it's like my daughter's age. She's a junior in high school. I'm like, parents are talking trash to soccer players. Like, soccer players ain't trying to talk to you outside. This ain't basketball. This ain't an interactive sport. You know what I mean?
Things are changing as we talking about with other stuff. That's what it is. It's just, I think the world, in the parenting world, and just in the world in general, you have the part of what you see on the screen here. If it's social media on your phone, if you're watching the news, or all the 100,000 talk shows like our show that are out there, and you get the people that they believe that has a little bit of credibility saying things that they think is okay to do, or they just forgot for a second because they're supporting their son or daughter in a game and don't realize where you at. Stay in your lane, shut your mouth, because you might get kicked out of the game. Because I know for Little League, that's what the rule at our field is. And a lot of parents, as we know, nothing against them, but they maybe played sports or not sports, so they don't understand that whole arena as a player, as a coach, to deal with all that. And then you're adding on more drama and suspense or whatever, and then you're maybe most likely embarrassing your kid because everybody knows that's your mom or dad yelling at the other player on the team, which is
gamesmanship. There's gamesmanship of like even over celebrating the good that your kids are doing, versus like talking trash to a 14-year-old to a 12-year-old. You're like, dude, what?
Man, you got a 401k and you're talking to a kid that's just trying to kick a goal.
That should be a t-shirt.
Right.
You got a 401k and you talking trash to a 12-year-old?
Right. Like, come on, people. Dude, you could be better.
So your boy LeBron is playing the Timberwolves in a play-in game. Yeah. I don't know if you saw LeBron crowned himself last night after being.
Oh no, I did not see that. So another young adult is crowning himself as the greatest of all time or something. What's up?
So the Timberwolves. So there's two things. Rudy Gobert punched a guy last night at Timberwolves.
I saw that.
But then Jaden McDaniels, who I don't even know who he is, but the dude walks. Apparently he plays.
He was with the Lakers. He's now with them.
That's right. So, but now he's not with anybody because he went inside. He was pissed off after.
He punched the wall.
He punched the wall and broke his hand.
It broke his own hand. Yes, I saw that too.
Now I'm going to tell you right now. This happened to a friend of mine. This happened to a teammate of mine in high school.
Oh, okay.
He missed a layup and he got so mad he punched we had the foam, against the brick wall.
Yeah, I know you're talking about. He missed it. He missed the foam.
No, he punched the pad and broke his wrist. Oh, so he was out. So I've seen this happen, but never from a pro guy. And you're like, dude.
What are you doing?
What do you tell your mom when your mom calls and she just, you pick up AG, pick up the phone and you just go, "Hey, mom," and she just she ain't even saying anything. You know what I mean? She's so disappointed. Yeah. And or you pick up your dad call. What in the hell are you? You dumb. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, and you just go. Yeah, I punched the wall.
My dad would have said, "How you feel now? Get it all out." Yeah, that's what my dad would have said.
No, my dad would have been like, can you just point out where you're going to sit? Can you go back out and just point out on the bench where you're going to be sitting for the next 2 games because your dumbass broke your own hand?
Yeah, Lordy. I don't know. I understand frustration in games. 100% that. That's almost
a crime. That is a crime of passion, my friend.
Yeah, it is. But you're a pro. If you're at the pro level, you should be able to reel it in just as much as you reeled it out. You could reel it in real fast. Because I remember a situation I was in. We were in Detroit. It was the Thanksgiving, one of the Thanksgiving games where we actually was the year before we lost to the Lions. So I get tackled. I got tackled by Barrett Green, who I knew in the offseason. He was in Miami. We hang out sometimes. Linebacker. The play was completely over. It was like a half a second went. And then I got body slammed. And I look over, and just as I'm ready, I'm about to fire into him. And I look at who it was. Then just as much as it was real, I was coming out where I'm like, I'm about to throw the ball at him, and then we about to fight. I saw who it was, and then also it helped that Brett tackled me. I saw who it was, and I kind of stopped, but Brett didn't realize, so he didn't tackle me. So it is a point where your brain, you do go 0 to 60 or 0 to 100, but then just as much you could calm it down, regardless of who's in front of you. It is, as a pro, you should be able to do that. I know it's tough. So
the only difference here being that you were going to hit a human.
I was like, what? Because it's like the play's over.
The dude's going to hit a wall.
I'm like, but I wasn't gonna swing at a helmet. I already know that's a no fly. You just tackle the guy and then you just wrestle. It just been a UFC fight. That's all it would have been.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think everybody's got one of these in their history where you either did it or you were this close to doing it. But to do it right now when you got to play the Lakers in a play-in game,
You played any type of sport, you've had this moment. You've had any sport, you've had this moment.
My teammate was a soccer captain, and he got real angry, and he tore a water fountain out of the wall.
Oh my goodness! Was this a really put together water fountain?
It couldn't have been that, right?
Right. Man, that's tough. If you
it was an older building.
Oh yeah, then that was industrial.
But he had, he was.
He went ham.
But I'll tell you what, that's the fun about sports is how passionate we get about it. It's sometimes you don't control it as well as you should.
No, you're human. That's who we are. We're human. So, all right, Mike, man, great show today, man. Let everybody know where they can find you at on social.
Yeah, MikeWall68 on Twitter, Process to Perform on Instagram. AG, a pleasure as always, man.
Yep, it's fun, big fun as usual. So you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at MindGreen30, all one word, and also Mind Green's Gamers Lounge on TikTok. Check us out.